now asking you this, with all the depressing bad news, terrorists, police attacks coverage, does that make you follow the news more or less? Are you at a tune-out stage right now? We'd love to hear from you. Also, we're going to open up the phones. I want to hear how you deal with all of this bad news, and there's so much of it out there now, and it comes from of a wide variety of sources, and what impact does it have on your life? Has it changed it? Please text us and call us. We also have a grief counselor, a professional joining us. Her name is Veronica Sites. Veronica, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Veronica, I got this CBS story that started off saying Nice, Dallas, Orlando, Brussels, Paris, and I guess it didn't have time to report very close to our home here, Baton Rouge, attacks in Germany, the beheading of a priest in France, San Diego reporting police shootings just last night. All of this stuff has become so extensively documented, recorded. It's seen widely because of the age of cell phones, social media, 24-hour news cycles. It's no wonder that it just gets people down and demoralized. And not only that, it puts them in fear and makes them nervous. And I'm wondering how many people are just simply checking out and saying, I just can't take anymore. I'm better off not dealing with it. And from your perspective as a grief counselor, do we see that people are becoming more and more depressed, the more cases of depression and people who just want to get into forms of escapism?
There certainly are higher risks, and people that check out may be in two different places. Some check out of denial, and some check out because it's more than they can handle. On to the end that it's more than they can handle, that is a concern, and it can contribute to, depression, different physical ailments, and various chronic fatigues, because it's like pressing down a carbonated drink that's been shaken up. I mean, sooner or later, something's going to tap that carbonated bottle, and you're going to have a big mess. People that choose to check out and have never had traumatic events that impacted them the way these, one after another, are using a coping mechanism that is just driving their focus to a place of continuing to be productive. However, it does impact everybody at different levels, and we need to be mindful of, how is it impacting you as an individual.
Just in my own personal life, I realized it just the other day, and I said, it's almost like I'm not surprised and shocked anymore. I mean, you still are when you hear these horrific events, but it's not like it was at first when we first started hearing so much of this and seeing what ISIS was doing and some of these terrorist attacks. And now it's like it's almost an everyday occurrence, like you almost expect it now.
It is, and it's almost, because of the fear or the concerns and anxieties that it, just seems to be all over the world. There is a response that is what next or where next, and we almost anticipate something, but unfortunately, because of our digital age and everything's at the tip of a finger, we are at risk of overexposing and becoming numb to the humanization that we really need to realize that these are people making bad choices. I mean, obviously horrific choices impacting other people that are hurting. And the natural instinct for most people is to want to do something to help, but then when you reach that place of helplessness, which most will experience that at some point, the helplessness becomes so much that you're just like, remove yourself from it, because not seeing how you can, help in a situation maybe that's across the ocean or, something of that nature. There's always the possibility of desensitizing when we realize that it's helpless. We are helpless, but we can do something. And the number one thing that I encourage people to recognize is don't equate your need or exposure of vulnerable, pain to the situation that may have become numb. Don't dismiss it because you see somebody else's need as greater, because 6 months from now, their need may have been met in certain ways, but yet you're the one that's living with the unrest and the compilation of stress, or, if it goes to depression, the effects of that.
There's a couple of terms that are kind of new. One is grief burnout, and the other is compassion fatigue. I'm going to call on you to dig into our psyche as a professional grief counselor. Are those methods that our minds and bodies naturally, it's a way for us to deal with this, where we just get burnt out and we want to eliminate the unpleasant feeling of grief? And also this compassion fatigue, that can be dangerous, where you just don't care anymore.
Compassion. I'll take compassion fatigue first, simply because we if have ever been on an airplane, we've always been instructed, and we know that you should put the oxygen mask on yourself in order to be able to, help the younger, weaker, older individual next to you or around you, simply because chronic fatigue is the byproduct of, responders get this. People that are, on the front lines that are bombarded and over and over dealing with the types of things myself. I have to self-care so that I don't go into the stages of compassion fatigue, which are not giving yourself emotional, physical, psychological downtime to remove from the situation and completely do something all the way off the chart to let your mind have a break. Because in my line of work, when I respond to, I have been barraged here with the Dallas shootings, and then I've been helping one of the families with the Nice explosion, and then when Baton Rouge. There are times that we work on 72 hours, and then we remove for at least 24 to 48 hours before we re-engage, depending on the load that we are taking on emotionally. Because, again, the mind can only take so much, and where we begin to recognize it, or the little yellow flags I will say that people can be mindful of, is when you recognize that emotions are extremely hypersensitive and you're not really sure why, you can always go back, professionals can always go back and trace to what are the high triggers that are really contributing to the stress. And people that have dealt with trauma from, various things, whether it's a divorce or childhood trauma, any type of abuses back in their history, have a potential of being at a greater level of stress and anxiety when things are out of control in the world. Well, so compassion fatigue is real.
Well, you were getting to answer my next question was escapism. Is it necessary? And what you're saying, yes, not only for the people going through it, but also for people like yourself who are dealing with the people who are going through it. Veronica, if you'll stay with me when we come back, we got a couple of callers on. I've got some text messages and want to continue our conversation about this, about coping mechanisms, and also about the news. It's so graphic. It's so proliferated now. Do you turn it off? Well, we've got the Peretti Opinion Poll question asking exactly that. Does this make you follow the news more or less because it is so prolific? We'll be right back. You're listening to The Think Tank on a Friday. It's Don Dubuque right here on WWL. All right, taking a look at our Peretti Opinion Poll question. With all depressing bad news, terrorism, police attacks, coverage, and other things, many other things, does it make you follow the news more or less? 86% of the people responding say less news because of that. 14% said they follow it more. Some of our text messages say, I think New Orleanians have become almost immune to violence because we see 3 or 4 murders a day. That's getting back to our topic about compassion fatigue and also grief burnout. Another says, hey, Don, good TIF, nice show. I follow Fox News regularly, and with all the Islamic terror attacks, that is, violence against law enforcement, my outlet is sports, baseball, horse racing, and music. Have a lovely weekend. That's from our friend Boston Bobby. Don also wants to comment about the news coverage. We also have Veronica Sites, a grief counselor, with us from Dallas, where certainly there's been a great need for the services she performs. Let's go to Slidell and talk to Don. Don, thanks for your call.
Hello.
Hey, Don, you're on.
Hey, I just wanted to talk a little bit. I'm an ex-emergency medical technician, and worked a lot on the streets and seen a lot of grief with a lot of things like that, and I understand what these policemen go through every day when they put their uniform on and walk out the house. There was many instances where when I was on duty and they were going to make a raid somewhere, they would call for the ambulance to back up, stay around a corner or whatever, just in case one of the policemen got shot or if they had to shoot someone. they were not going out to try to shoot someone or to get shot. So they wanted help to be available to be able to help them. And, you know, the police go through a lot of stuff out there. And yes, I do watch the news. Drives me crazy sometimes. I do suffer from, I say PTSD from the years of working on the ambulance and the things that I have seen in the past, the things I've seen on TV. I get very emotional. I'm 61 years old now, and I get very emotional when I watch certain things on TV. Especially when a policeman get killed and things like that. And I've always wanted to say to the world, because I used to teach CPR, cardiac pulmonary resuscitation. I've taught children. I've taught daycares. I've taught Boy Scout groups. And these children loved it when they learned to save a life instead of taking a life. Why can't that be implemented in all schools around the nation? Teach these children young how to save a life, not to take a life. They're there to help someone, and it gives them that set in their mind, let me save a life instead of taking a life, and they grow up better children.
Don, in the job you're in, you certainly got to suffer for some burnout. How do you deal with it? Do you have a form of escapism? What do you do when you simply just said, I got to check out, I had enough of this?
I turn the TV off. I cry. There's a lot of things I'm not afraid to admit I cry, and it helps. And there's a lot of things I cannot watch on TV, from good to bad. I get extremely emotional at weddings, at funerals. It don't matter. I get very emotional. I know I'm burnt down on it. I know I do need to seek some help for it because I don't. And I just go through life, my daily life, trying to help everybody I could possibly help. That's all I do.
Veronica, any comments or advice for Don?
Well, Don, I mean, I want to applaud you for, one, being honest and crying. That is the most healthy thing physically that a body can do, because what people don't understand is that when we release the tears, it actually releases in our bodies chemicals that offset the toxins that have been compressed in our body when we don't deal with the pain, the grief, the heartache, anything that requires or even prompts tears. When it is suppressed or stuffed or, just pressed down, at some point the body is going to give in to all of the toxins, whether it is a physical illness or it becomes, mental illness as far as depression or any form of maladies that can happen from that. I personally am one that has overcome PTSD, which is why I'm very, very passionate about what I do, understanding that what Dawn mentioned as far as teaching these children and teaching the younger generation to respect and cherish life is what I've come to realize, not just from studies alone, and is that if we catch these cycles as they are unfolding, it does not have to become disorder. Post-traumatic stress is an incident stress that is heightened when anything completely destroys normal in a devastating way. And for Dawn, what I would say to you is definitely go ahead, and you already know you've acknowledged you might need some help. Take that next step and receive it, because what we don't want to happen is that the unhealthy normal becomes the normal lifestyle for somebody, because the checking out is more than just, turning our attention somewhere. You want to be able to interact and engage at the maximum way that you can help people. And sometimes being the overcomer is that story somebody else needs to hear and see the hope of recovering from.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. Thank you very much for all your comments. And I've already had 2 heart attacks, both times when I was working on the ambulance and I was a CPR instructor. With the stress, I've already had 2 heart attacks. Luckily, I'm still here to talk about it.
All right, Don.
Yep. Now, but here I am.
Hang in there, Don. Hang in there, my friend. Thank you for the call. Veronica, in your line of work, do you ever prescribe for someone to turn the TV off, to stop getting the instant text messages from news, checking social media, reading even what newspapers are left, and all of the bad news that we're bombarded with? Is that something that you suggest to people to do?
highly recommend completely unplugging. And what I mean by unplugging is there's so much, electronic data around us. It's do something that is out of what is ordinary for you and then becomes an extraordinary experience. If that means going to the lake, if it means, something you haven't done in a long time that you used to enjoy, maybe at a younger stage of life, go do that. But don't take your phone. Don't listen to the radio. Give yourself, it's a mental detox is what you do. You allow your brain to go ahead and take in anything other than the data, the media, the things that are feeding and fueling the stress. You disconnect from that and you reconnect and you refocus your energy. Physical things. I mean, go play sports, do some exercise, do something that is just actually going to be fun. And this is something that is a real challenge for people because many times they feel guilty going and doing something when other people are in such a devastated stage. But the number one thing to remember is that you have got to put that proverbial oxygen mask on you to be the best resource and help to the rest of the community going forward.
I love that. I love that recommendation. Veronica, stay with it. We're going to take a news break. We come back. I want people to call us and text us, and I'm sure you would welcome any forms of escapism or check out methods that people have found to keep their sanity, if nothing else, and avoid compassion fatigue and grief burnout. Veronica Sites, a grief counselor, is our guest. If you want to join the conversation, 504-260-1870. And you can always instant text messages, but please remember to text responsibly to 870-870. We'll be right back, but first, Jim Hanzo has the latest. Veronica Sites is with us, a grief counselor. We'd love to hear your story. How do you deal with it? 504-260-1870 or text us at 870-870. Veronica, I really believe that the popularity of sports, professional sports, the reason it's so popular is it is a true form of escapism. Now, sometimes it gets to where the sports gets into the political and the drama, and then you kind of get back into the anxiety and the grief. But as a rule, it just for 3 or 4 hours, people just get into it, get away from it, and it's as much about being removed from the news as it is enjoying the sport that's going on. Do you agree?
It is, and that kind of goes back to the engagement that an individual has. It does. You interact. You've got, enzymes, dopamine, serotonin, all of these things kind of engage in there. And, you got adrenaline, too. I mean, your team starts not doing what it's wanting to do. You're going to have a little, spike in some other things. That is one of the neatest things. And I will say this. I don't usually categorize it this way, but this is one thing that men do very well. They get out there and they blow steam off extremely well, where sometimes we as females will tend to brew and, stew, and we need to just get out there, garden, run, do whatever it physically takes to go ahead and exert some of that energy, because it will help you to decompress. So yes, sports by all means, just be mindful if you're being a little more aggressive with your sports that maybe now's not the time to engage in them. Maybe just, go do something like ride your bicycle and do something where you are actively exerting it, but not projecting all that's coming out of you on somebody else.
Yeah, and I think getting out into the wilderness, I'm leaving next week for Alaska, and when I go to Alaska for a week, I don't want to see news, I don't want to hear news. It's me and the salmon, the bears, and the bald eagles, and boy, that kind of helps you put perspective back in life. I got some interesting texts I'd like you to comment on, Veronica, that are coming in, and this one may be tongue-in-cheek, but it says, Don, every time I watch MSNBC, I throw up. Can Veronica help? I don't know. Maybe you can help them by telling them change the channel, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I did turn the channel. No, I actually, I am a grief trauma counselor, but my line of work is actually conflict resolution, because I deal with the broader, all of the outside stuff. If there's something physically going on, I'm sure it was tongue-in-cheek, but if there are physical things going on in the body that are not normal and healthy to you, it's your body's way of telling you something needs to change in the direction of health, but you're the only one that is ridiculously in charge of determining when enough is enough. So humor is a great way that people deal with and cope with hurt, hard heartbreaking situation. So.
Oh, how many times have you seen a very serious conversation just relax everyone? You break them up with humor,
Oh yeah. I've got a good friend. He's an amputee, and anybody ever uses the phrase "a leg up," he'll take it off and raise it up in the room. I mean, it's just that's life.
I got another text here that says, I love an afternoon in the river with my daughter. Critters and currents, never a problem. I agree with that. And here's one that's kind of taking issue with a comment you made, so I'm going to let you respond to it. It says, let's see, where was it? It was about you should stick to grief counseling. Shedding a tear releases built-up toxins from our bodies. What drivel? Is that drivel?
No, it's not. It's called neuroscience. It actually does release toxins in the body.
So crying is a good thing.
Crying is a good thing. That's why we have tear ducts. So, I would encourage that person to, even Google it. They will find some benefits to that.
All right. Take Veronica's advice and Google it. All right, we're going to come right back after this. I got some more texts coming in. If you want to shoot. Well, I got this one coming in. This one says, to escape, I listen to WWL. The hate and hypocrisy is laughable. Now, I don't know whether they mean the hate and hypocrisy is for me, the guest, or the callers, but whatever my part is, I'm glad to help you if it's therapeutic for you. Here's a response text from the one that said that your comment about crying was drivel. They said, backing up a little bit, said, I didn't say crying was not a good and necessary thing. But I guess they're still not buying the argument about releasing toxins, but they need to Google that and check it. And here's one that says, this is from one of our Alabama Coast listeners, I put everything in God's hands. Is that a good way for people to deal with grief and compassion, fatigue, and things of that nature?
That's one of the absolute best ways, simply because we all are creatures of hope and desire. And one of the things that happens in the traumatic aftermath is there's the question of a sense of security, a sense of what can I count on? Is my fear going to be calmed? And faith, being a big component of that, is really gets you to anchor on what you can rely on. Where does your hope project? What are you looking towards? So it's kind of, I explain it this way: if your faith is sound and grounded, and everything else change, and whatever you've projected your faith on is immovable, unchangeable, and timeless, then it's a lot easier to stand up on that foundation, as it is different to if your faith is based on something that's always changing and, subjected to anything and everything goes, then it's going to be a lot tougher to find your sense of security. So absolutely, there's components that we look at. We look at the spiritual, the emotional, the psychological. The human is a very complex individual, but those are three things that undeniably everybody searches for hope somewhere.
I got a couple more suggestions in on what people do for an escape mechanism. One says a trip to Global Wildlife is very therapeutic and relaxing. Now, Veronica, Global Wildlife is a large acreage tract north of New Orleans that it keeps endangered animals, foreign animals, exotics on an open ranch, and they roam free, and they take you on like a little train and give you a tour of it, and you get to spend time out there. So that's a very good suggestion. Brandy and Homer says, when I want to escape, I walk my dogs. Whatever it takes.
And you're hearing this even from your listeners, is interacting with animals is a very good thing to do. In fact, that's why, therapy dogs, compassion dogs, other animals, horses are a phenomenal animal to interact with because they're very perceptive. And there's many studies have shown, and there's a lot of professions out there that use specifically horses for really tapping into where somebody is maybe not able to express. I have a horse therapist that I interact with and is able to help people process through some things that they cannot express, because the horse is very perceptive to things that people don't pick up on. But on another note, I will say this because it hasn't been brought up. There are ways of checking out that are not healthy, and that would be any form of, substance abuse, alcohol, overusing, those types of things. Using nature and animals and, just retreating from what is so high-paced in our world is always the best option because, again, we are wired to connect with a creator. And, where we project our faith, again, is going to realign us with where we find peace.
Veronica, I got a text in from Mobile, and I don't know if on the short radio show you'll be able to handle this, but you maybe have some further advice for this person. They said they have a stress issue that they don't know how to handle. Their uncle has stage 4 cancer. He's dying, has become delusional, and totally shut me out as a family member. I'm an Army veteran of OIF and have PTSD, but I don't know how to handle this. That's from Tony F. in Mobile.
Tony, go to my website at conflictresolutionspeaker.com and just fill out the form. I need a coach, and I will get you connected with resources for you, for your situation, and maybe even to help your loved one as well.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on there. Another text comes in and says, fire up the green egg to escape. Cooking, is that a good way to escape and then maybe help some other folks too?
Cooking is, here's the thing. It's not whatever it takes to release stress. It's whatever is healthy and productive towards a good end. So, yes, cooking is healthy. Just don't go in excess and start, overindulging and become gluttonous about it. It's fun. It's a creative outlet for people. And another thing is when we are cooking, oftentimes we're not just doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for somebody else. So that connection with other people is very, very important and healthy.
Veronica, earlier you congratulated and commended Don for his courage, for calling up and admitting he has a problem and that he needed help on it. Oftentimes, people that are undergoing these problems don't have that. They don't make the first move. If someone sees that in someone else, what is your advice to them to help them get help?
Well, one of the things is to have the compassion to recognize many people don't seek help because our society and culture has projected stigma, and there is a certain amount of embarrassment or the vulnerability is extremely high. So if you're reaching out to somebody, the best thing to do is, just say, hey, I noticed that, whatever that thing is that you're noticing, if they're not eating as much or, not eating as often, or you seem a little distracted, whatever it may be, just point out what it is and just say, I would like to be here. And I just want you to know that I care. Just let them know that you care. And a lot of times just being, and however awkward it is for you to just sit, being present will often open that person to receiving the opportunity to talk to you. And we're not prone to sit and wait. That's a hard part for us if we're trying to help.
All right, I got another text that says, sitting near a body of water relaxes me. Yeah, there is some very calming effect about water. Veronica, we're just about out of time. Thanks so much for spending time with us from your busy schedule. And if you would, give out that website again if someone wants to contact you.
It's conflictresolutionspeaker.com.
All right. Look forward to our next visit. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Veronica Sites, a grief counselor from the Dallas area. All right.